I'm Grace, a 55-year-old housewife. My spouse, Mark, is 57, and we've been married for 35 years. I lost my uterus to disease several years into our marriage. There was also some talk about divorce, but I married you to begin a family. So let us not get divorced and live together. When I was almost crushed over not being able to have children, Mark encouraged me by saying this. Mark is the third son. His father was the president of a small business, and after his death, his oldest son took over. Mark's behavior has altered gradually since he joined my parents' company at the request of my brother-in-law. About a year after joining the company, he began arriving late, close to midnight, claiming that he needed to work extra. He also began leaving the house. Because he had to work on his days off, he began to avoid talking to me, and his facial expression became less joyful. No matter how many times I asked him about it, he kept saying, "It's nothing. There's nothing to talk about with you." I also became increasingly suspicious of Mark's attitude, and I attempted to discuss it with him on various occasions. But he refused to speak with me for whatever reason. There was no question that something had occurred, either within his family or at work. Did my mother-in-law say anything to him? I eventually came to believe that. This is due to the significant distance that exists between me and my mother-in-law. My mother-in-law was really harsh on me for being unable to have children. Why did you marry Mark if you don't have any children? If you are, you cannot have children. Get divorced soon. You're an eyesore. These remarks were made to me every time we saw each other. When Mark learned about it, he was enraged. The next time you say something like that, I will cut you off from this family. Mark was outraged, so he told his mother he planned to travel with her. So we agreed that I would not have anything to do with my in-laws. I have since grown apart from my in-laws, but I can't entirely cut links with them for various reasons, including interacting with family. On those occasions, I only greeted and spoke with my mother-in-law when absolutely necessary, and I tried not to show that I was avoiding her. However, my mother-in-law discussed me behind my back with my family. Some of the people who took advantage of my mother-in-law's story made passing remarks about me and actively avoided me. Grace, you never had a baby, but you took advantage of Mark's kindness by telling him not to contact his mother. How can you be as blatant as his wife? I'm sorry I can't have children, but Mark said I didn't have to get involved with his mother. With all due respect, I believe it is inappropriate to bring up an issue that was settled between the two parties that you are unaware of. It will create unnecessary misconceptions and complicate the connection. My remarks and attitude astounded the family member who was on my mother-in-law's side, who had not anticipated me to respond. She immediately became upset. I am only trying to give you tips on how to get along with your relatives. Was my mother-in-law really calling me a useless, childless woman? Indeed, she did, and she is not wrong. You cannot do your job as a wife. You cannot respect your relatives. You are also untrustworthy. Why did Mark marry a crazy lady like you? Who knows? Oh, and by the way, Mark stated that if his mother continues to tell him that he is useless and unable to have children, he would end his relationship with her for good. What would his mother do if this happened? Will you inform Mark about this? Will you accept responsibility? When I brought up Mark's and his mother's insulation, the related woman, who appeared to be unaware of what was going on, was at a loss for words and apologized softly. I apologize. I think I interfered too much. Out of respect for Mark's mother, I don't want to cause problems. So can we simply ignore this ever happening? She quickly departed. I considered telling Mark, but I chose not to, instead informing my mother-in-law in secret. I noticed you're still thinking about me not having children. I just heard from a relative. Should I have another in-depth chat with Mark as well? My mother-in-law turned blue and refused to discuss what I had said. I apologize. I suppose my words came out a little twisted. I am sorry for you and your family that you had decided not to have children, but I do not wish to blame you for it. My mother-in-law instantly apologized so that her son would not cut relations with her. We chose to keep this information to ourselves for the next few decades. We liked our time together even though we never had children. After all these days, Mark tells me, my brother asked if I wanted to join his company. I informed him that I was too old to change occupations, but he insisted, and he doesn't make it sound like the company is going bad. What do you think I should do? He asked me. In truth, I am now a full-time housewife, but as a management consultant, I have seen a number of organizations in financial trouble. So I quickly looked into his family's company, which did not appear to be in financial distress. Mark chose to join the company's board after I told him this. His elder brother had become attached to him after learning more about his other brother. The reason for this solicitation was simple. The company was short on workers, and the employees who held the post had retired due to illness. Thus, the company was looking for someone who could fill the role. Position descriptions after a year had elapsed. Mark's behavior started to shift. He began returning home late at night, and his attitude toward me grew icy. There was a lot of disagreement, but then Mark told me that the housekeeper who had worked at my parents' house had quit due to a severe illness. "You have some free time on your hands, so could you work as a housekeeper in my parents' home? Until we get a new housekeeper." The certainty of the offer astounded me. When I inquired for additional information, I discovered that she was not a cleaner but rather a caretaker for his older brother who lived at home. I discovered that her primary responsibility was to care for the grandchildren raised by my parents in that family. The elder brother and his wife were going through a divorce, so they were caring for the grandchild. The granddaughter Mia was 12 years old, and while she was in school, the caregiver cleaned the house and cooked supper. After Mark informed me more about Mia, I decided to accept the position. Mia appears to have a difficult time with adults, and she was shy with me at first. However, after 6 months, Mia began to speak with me about her concerns. And even at school, I was able to learn a lot more from her. I asked Mark's brother if I could look after Mia at home so that I could spend more time with her. "You planned to kidnap Mia because you were unable to have children. And if you refuse to clean the house and do the duties, you are not a good housekeeper, so I will terminate your employment." And from my mother-in-law who heard this, "Now you want a child?" You persuaded Mark to abandon his desire to have children, and you believe this is acceptable discourse. Besides, Mia is a girl, and if you take her in, she'll soon marry off and waste Mark's money. I won't let you do that, and declined my request. I didn't even say I'd take her in, but my mother-in-law and brother-in-law rushed to the gun because I don't have any children. Perhaps my mother-in-law believed that because Mia is a girl and cannot be the heir, she did not want to include her in my parents' finances. She probably wants her mother to take over Mia once her father and his marriage divorce. On top of that, my mother-in-law told Mia this: "You will move to your mother's side and live in poverty, so don't grow attached to living at home. You are the only one who will be of no help to our family." Mia became bitter toward her grandmother as a result of this. This thought irritated me to the point where I couldn't say anything. At the very least, while visiting my in-laws, I tried to prepare Mia's favorite cuisine and avoid contact with my mother-in-law as much as possible so that Mia might be as happy as possible. After a year had gone by, I went to my in-laws' place to talk to Mark. Mark was waiting for me, sandwiched between his elder brother and his mother. "My brother's divorce is finalized. This means you are no longer useful to me, so I am divorcing you. Get the hell out of my house." I was taken aback when Mark presented me with the completed divorce papers and requested, "Please give me some time to think about it." I managed to get out a few sentences before heading home. When I looked over the divorce papers, I saw a message from Mark written on the back. When I saw it, I immediately contacted the police. A few days later, I relocated to a new home and began living on my own. Mark called and summoned me to my parents-in-law's residence. My mother-in-law, her older son, and Mark were waiting for me with unpleasant expressions. "Oh God, what have you done to us? You took Mia's father, uncle, and grandma, and then had us pay child support. Did I steal Mia's father from her? Did her father ever treat her as a daughter in the first place, according to her grandmother? Are you speaking about yourself? How can you say such a thing after treating her so badly? How dare you? I was thinking about Mia." My mother-in-law blamed me for my actions from the outset. I was actually in the middle of the divorce settlement, and I had handed my brother-in-law's wife a tape of their outbursts and how they mistreated Mia at my parents' house. I'd given her as many recordings as I could. Custody would be safely transferred to the mother's side, and everyone would chastise Severi for this. "Do you really believe you can get away with this with your husband's family?" "I don't care because we are already divorced." When I said that, Mark, who had been quiet until then, opened his mouth. "My family? This is not my family. I am now a stranger to you. What exactly are you talking about? What do you mean?" We had to explain what had happened thus far to Mark's sibling and his mother's eyes. Based on what Mark had said, in fact, this time it was an operation to charge my in-laws with tax evasion, together with Mark's other brother. Mark's father adored his younger brother, while his older brother despised him. And following the loss of their father, he was obliged to accept a substandard post with significantly decreased pay. This brother has his own business and was searching for an opportunity to leave. However, the company in which his eldest brother succeeded had many uncertain settlements and expenses, and the eldest brother's salary was significantly cut. He felt their brother was dodging taxes and consulted Mark. During this process, he discovered how severely his mother, his oldest brother, had treated Mia. Mia's mother wished to win custody. However, my mother-in-law and her eldest son were attempting to obtain custody of Mia. My mother-in-law attempted to get rid of Mia because she and her eldest son disagreed. My mother-in-law had spoken such words to Mia several times. I recorded as many words as possible and chronicled the child-rearing atmosphere. I was gathering proofs so Mia's mother could take custody of her. In addition to the injustice of the in-laws, Mark's unusual behavior was due to the atmosphere in which Mia was placed. He was also upset with his mother's attitude. He wished he could help Mia, but he couldn't. He considered asking me for advice. However, I had previously been blamed for not having children, so he was torn between asking me to care for the child and asking his sister-in-law and her family. Mark informed me about it all when his in-law's housekeeper quit. I quickly agreed to assist him with his idea and took action. And he scrawled on the back of the divorce papers, "I'm ready to go, and I want you to contact the authorities." When I described everything, his older brother turned color and began yelling. "So you have reported us? What will you do about the company? We'll go bankrupt at this pace. Our brother is planning to buy it. Furthermore, we have fantastic experts to help us rebuild the organization in the future. Do not worry about anything, brother. Go, atone for your crimes. Thank you very much for all of your hard work, tax evasion and fraud," Mark remarked, smiling and making a phone call somewhere. "That's it. You are now dismissed. I'd like it if you could sell this house to repay the bill," he replied. And then other guys entered the room, including Mark's other brother. The man who came in with his brother was a police officer, and he stated that his eldest brother and mother, who were involved in tax evasion, might try to do the opposite. So they were arrested and taken away right away. As they were being hauled away, I couldn't stop laughing at my mother-in-law. She swore at me endlessly. "Even if I cannot have children, I will do everything in my power to keep the company from going bankrupt. And I'm pleased that I don't have to worry about being mistreated for not having children. Thank you so much for being my role model." When I said it, my mother-in-law went silent and left the room. My parents then adopted Mark, and he joined our family. Mark and I started working at my ex-sister-in-law's family business, which his other brother had bought in order to restore the company. We've been busy dealing with the fraud, unpaid salaries that my mother-in-law and her eldest son had been saving up until now. However, the second son, who founded his own company and possesses exceptional managerial skills, has been working hard to improve the company's success. I've been out of the field for a long time, but I'm now working hard to restore the company's productivity. My mother-in-law and her eldest son were condemned to more severe penalties than typical. Because of the significant amount of tax evasion they had committed, of course, my former parents-in-law's house was sold and their property was disinherited, leaving them impoverished and without a place to live. It will be a while before they find out. My mother-in-law sent me many letters via my lawyer. Some called me a traitor, a pestilence who wrecked our house. Another said, "For the sake of my relatives, I need your assistance. I forgive you for being unable to bear children, didn't I?" I found it interesting at first and read it, but I eventually got tired of it. I felt bored and declined to receive them. Mia and I communicate occasionally. It's been a while since this incident, and I've been trying to help her and her mother get their lives back on track. Mia's mother called me to thank me for caring for her virtually alone. "Hannah, you saved Mia's life. Mia has been inquiring about you ever since, stating you were the only person who treated her well. If you don't mind, would you like to play with Mia again?" I began to cry uncontrollably at those words. Also to Mia, who was on the phone before I realized it. "I'd like to eat your food again. Will you make it for me next time?" I cried so hard as she called out to me. Mark, who was nearby, noticed this and initially wondered what was going on. However, when he heard Mia's passionate voice coming from the receiver, she pointed at me and began giggling wildly. We established an appointment to meet and hung up the phone. And because our new house was only a 15-minute drive from Mia and her family's new home, we began to see each other more frequently. I'm swamped with work right now, but once things calm down, I'll be able to spend more time with Mia and her family. I guess I will invite Mia and her mother to Disneyland. By the way, Mark told me about his earlier harsh attitude and hesitation in talking with me before my parents adopted him. He apologized numerous times for making me feel uncomfortable when he brought me face to face with his mother. I was not upset at him in any way, and now we can live a happy life. Despite the fact that Mia is not my own child, I am excited to watch her grow up near me.